There are 21 ordinary objects sitting in ordinary houses right now that are worth a small fortune, and the people who own them have no idea. Not the good china behind the glass. Not the thing your family already fights about. I mean the stuff nobody has looked at twice in years. The tin at the bottom of the wardrobe. The shoebox in the loft. The drawer that only gets opened at Christmas. Every item tonight is real. Every price is a real sale. And every single one was found by an ordinary person who's almost binned it first. And the item at number 1, the one I am saving until the very end, is the thing your mother very likely threw out on purpose, thinking she was doing you a favor. Copies of it have sold for over $7 million. By the time we get there, you will know exactly what to look for. And I would not let a single box leave your house before you have checked it. Let me be straight with you before we start, because false hope does nobody any good, and I have watched it do real damage. Most of what is in your house is worth exactly what it looks like it's worth. A chipped plate is a chipped plate. No story changes that. But here is what nearly 3 decades of house clearances taught me. In almost every home I've ever gone through, there was one object worth more than everything else in the building combined, and the family walked straight past it, sometimes twice. Before we get going, one quick thing. This channel has had extraordinary support lately, and I don't take that lightly, so here's how I want to say thank you. No adverts cluttering these videos, ever. Your time matters more than that. If you want to back the channel, there's one way to do it. I put everything I know, 40 years of trade knowledge, into one guide. Every common household item, how to check it, what it actually sells for, and exactly where to sell it. It's linked below and on screen now. Right, let's get into it. Number 21, cigarette cards. Not the postcards, the little stiffened cards that came free inside cigarette packets from the 1880s right through to the 1940s. Almost every house has a tin or an album of these tucked away, usually dismissed as clutter from a grandfather who smoked. Most sets are worth very little. A common set of footballers or film stars from the 30s brings 10 to 30 pounds, and that is the honest ceiling for most of them. But complete sets in genuinely mint condition, and rare pre-1900 sets especially, are a different story entirely. A near-complete set of an early tobacco issue sold at a specialist auction for just over 4,000 pounds, because collectors weren't chasing the cards, they were chasing the album, still intact, exactly as it left the factory. Your test tonight: never separate a set to sell the best cards individually. A complete album is worth several times the sum of its parts, and a dealer who suggests breaking it up is doing his own maths, not yours. Number 20, board games. Cardboard, dice, and a missing piece or two, and nearly everyone assumes that's the end of the value. Early Monopoly sets from the 1930s, wooden chess sets with hand-carved pieces, and Victorian parlor games with lithographed boards are the ones to watch. A first-year British Monopoly set, still with its original wooden houses and hotels, made close to £900 at auction purely because almost nobody kept the box in one piece. Your test tonight: check the box lid before the board itself. The lid is what gets crushed first and what collectors pay for last, so an intact one with sharp corners can double the price of an otherwise ordinary game. Number 19, fountain pens. Small, easy to lose down the back of a drawer, and treated as junk the moment the ink dries up for good. Most old pens genuinely are worth a few pounds, and I won't pretend otherwise, but this category has real spikes hiding in it. British Conway Stewarts in marbled celluloid bring 50 to several hundred pounds. A gold-nibbed Parker Duofold in good color can clear 1,000. And hand-lacquered Japanese pens with inlaid gold decoration have sold for well into the thousands. Your test tonight: look for a nib stamped 14 or 18, the carat marks for real gold, and treat any pen that's larger, brighter, or stranger looking than a plain black office pen as one to get checked before it goes anywhere near a bin bag. Number 18, letters and diaries. The category families throw out first and should keep until last. Everyone has a biscuit tin of just old letters, and that phrase has cost more families money than damp ever has. Wartime correspondence from a named soldier, especially with the original envelope and stamps, routinely sells for hundreds. Personal diaries from ordinary people living through extraordinary events, evacuation, rationing, emigration, are bought by regional archives and private collectors alike. Your test tonight: read every signature and every postmark before you decide anything is just paper. Put the names into a search engine. History is what collectors are actually buying, and paper is where it survives. Number 17, books. This is where the numbers start climbing, and condition decides nearly everything. A first edition in its original dust jacket can be worth 20 times the same book stripped bare because jackets were flimsy and thrown away by the tidy. Children's classics are the sleeper category. They were read to pieces, which makes clean survivors genuinely rare. Early hardback printings of well-loved children's series have sold for thousands, occasionally tens of thousands, when the jacket has survived intact. Your test tonight, open to the copyright page: Look for a single date with no reprint list underneath it, then find the number line and check whether it runs all the way down to 1. Never tape a torn jacket. Tape is permanent, and it halves the value on the spot. Number 16, wristwatches. And here is our first genuinely startling figure. During wartime, military contracts required plain, rugged, no-nonsense field watches from a handful of Swiss manufacturers, made purely to survive combat conditions, not to look nice. One of the scarcer makers produced so few surviving examples that a single specimen sold at auction for just over £21,000. A small steel watch with a plain black dial and absolutely nothing decorative about it. Your test tonight: turn any old military issue watch over and check the case back for small stamped military marks and a maker's name, then write it down before you do anything else. And the same rule applies to the rest of the drawer. A plain steel sports watch from a serious maker is almost always worth more than the gold-plated dress watch sitting next to it, and the scrap counter is counting on you never finding that out. Number 15, silver, the item that best proves why weight is the enemy. A silver teaspoon holds a few grams of metal, worth a couple of pounds, melted down, which is exactly what most scrap buyers are set up to do with it. But a set of spoons bearing the mark of a known named silversmith, rather than an anonymous factory stamp, has sold for thousands at specialist auction, purely on the strength of that one small punched mark. Your test tonight: take a single piece to a bright window with reading glasses and hunt for the marks. A lion means sterling silver. A town mark and a date letter fix exactly where and when it was made. And the maker's initials, stamped in their own punch, are the mark that actually pays. Nothing pre-1950 goes anywhere near a scrap counter until those marks have been read properly. Number 14, advertising tins. Look at the container, not what's inside it. From the 1880s through the 1930s, biscuit and tobacco companies fought for shelf space by shaping their tins like other things entirely. Books, motor cars, houses, even caravans, and most were thrown out the moment the contents ran dry. Surviving figural tins in bright original paint now sell for hundreds of pounds, and the rarest examples clear 1,000. One advertising tin found sealed behind a wall during a house renovation sold for close to $40,000, once bidders realized how few had survived outside a bricked-up cavity. Your test tonight: empty every tin and judge it purely as an object. A tin shaped like anything other than a plain box goes in the keep pile immediately, and so does anything carrying a brand name nobody has heard of in 80 years. Quick word before we carry on: if you've got things at home you're not sure about, don't do anything with them yet. Not until you know what they're actually worth. Everything I know is in the guide linked on screen right now. Back to it. Number 13, stamps. And here's a story worth telling precisely because of how ordinary it started. A tea caddy came down from an attic during a routine house clearance, filled with a stamp collection nobody living remembered assembling. Catalogued modestly, it sold for over £60,000, dozens of times its estimate. Now the honest part: most schoolboy stamp albums from the 60s and 70s really are worth only 10 or 20 pounds, and no amount of hoping changes that. The money lives in early issues, printing errors, and stamps left attached to their original envelopes, which are often worth several times the same stamp soaked free. Your test tonight: never soak, never peel, never remove a stamp from an old envelope, and take an album to a specialist rather than a general dealer, because a specialist prices the best 12 stamps, and a generalist prices the album as a whole. Before the top 12, let me tell you the thing that took me the better part of 20 years to properly understand, because it explains every single item on this list. A house gets sorted by sentiment, never by value. The things people keep on display are the things they like the look of, which is exactly why the genuinely valuable object is so often the one shoved at the very back. Nobody ever formed an opinion about it. It went in a box, the box went in the loft, and decades passed without a second look under decent light. Number 12, art glass. The item that should make you look twice at every ornament on the mantelpiece. A woman picked up a colored glass vase at a thrift store for $4 because she liked the shade of blue. It turned out to be a signed piece by a well-known mid-century Italian glassmaker, and it sold at auction for over $11,000. Glass does this more than almost any other category, because most pieces carry no visible maker's mark at all, so the value depends entirely on whoever examines it, first knowing what to look for. Your test tonight: turn every piece over and check the base under bright light held at a low angle, hunting for a signature scratched in with a fine point, an acid-etched stamp, or the ghost outline of a paper label. Never wash a label off. That small sticker is sometimes the only identification the piece will ever carry. Number 11, medals. This is where money and emotion collide, because many of you have a relative's medal sitting in a drawer somewhere. The honest picture first: standard campaign medals issued to millions of ordinary servicemen are worth 20 to 60 pounds a group, and that low figure is not what makes them precious. But gallantry awards are an entirely different market. A medal awarded specifically for an act of bravery can bring hundreds to low thousands. And at the very top, the rarest awards for extreme valor have sold for hundreds of thousands of pounds. Your test tonight is the naming around the rim. Most British medals are impressed with the recipient's name, service number, and regiment, and that naming is the whole of the value. It turns a metal disc into one documented man's war. Never polish it, never clean it, and never split a group apart, because a set kept together is worth far more than the same metals scattered across different sales. Number 10, coins. The one that should send you straight to the change jar tonight. In wartime America, pennies were struck in steel to conserve copper, but a small number of leftover bronze blanks slipped through the presses. Roughly 20 of these off-metal coins are known to exist, and one, found in ordinary pocket change, and kept for decades before anyone realized what it was, sold for over $200,000. Your test tonight takes 10 seconds. Any coin from that wartime year that looks brown rather than silvery gray goes straight to a magnet. Steel sticks, bronze does not, and if the magnet ignores it, that coin goes to a proper auction house, not a coin shop scale. And while you're at it, anything British dated before 1947 is genuine silver, a fact the scrap counter is quietly counting on you never checking. Number 9, paintings. I want to be direct here because I'm asked about this more than anything else on the list. The pictures facing the wall in the spare room, the dark landscapes, the foxed watercolors that came down during a redecoration and never went back up are the single most underexamined objects in the average home. Most are decorative and worth a modest sum. But the exceptions happen constantly because unsigned or unattributed paintings pass through car boot sales and thrift shops routinely, and the news carries a steady trickle of canvases bought for a few pounds that turn out to be by a listed artist and sell for 6 figures. Your test tonight: go through the stack one at a time in good light. Check every corner for a signature, then turn each one over, because the back of a painting is its passport. Old auction labels, exhibition stickers, and framers' marks tell a specialist more in 5 seconds than the front does in an hour. Never clean it yourself. A well-meaning wipe with a damp cloth has taken more signatures with it than any fire ever has. Number 8, a warning, because at these prices, the fakers arrive. In the early 2000s, a museum paid close to £500,000 for what it believed was an ancient Egyptian statue, only for it to be revealed as the work of a retired local man who had carved it in his garden shed using ordinary tools and a library book, with his elderly parents handling the sale. It fooled auction houses and experts alike. Your test tonight is a habit, not a check. Be suspicious of any object that arrives with a suspiciously convenient story, particularly one that explains away the total absence of paperwork. Fakers work hardest exactly where the money is highest, so get an opinion from someone who isn't buying the item from you. Number 7, jewelry, and the story every valuer in the trade quietly tells against themselves. A woman bought a large, dull-looking ring at a car boot sale for a few pounds, assuming it was costume glass because it didn't sparkle the way modern stones do. She wore it gardening and shopping for years. It was, in fact, a large old cut diamond, its soft antique glow the very reason everyone who saw it assumed it was fake. It later sold at auction for well over £500,000. Your test tonight: wash the dull gray stones sitting at the bottom of the box in warm, soapy water with a soft brush, because most of them are simply filthy rather than worthless, and look sideways into them for large, irregular facets and a tiny flat spot at the base, the fingerprint of hand-cutting. And white metal that never needs polishing and feels heavy for its size is very often unmarked platinum, which wasn't compulsorily hallmarked in Britain until 1975, and which scrap counters have been quietly buying as silver for decades. Number 6, vinyl records, and the summit of the record world isn't some obscure rarity, it's the most famous album ever pressed. When a legendary rock band released their landmark album in the late 60s, the very first copies off the pressing line were individually hand-numbered, and copy number 1, kept by a band member for decades, later sold for close to $800,000. Now the honest part: the vast majority of attic vinyl is worth pennies, and charity shops are drowning in it. The real money lives in first pressings and manufacturing mistakes, the wrong label used by accident, an early pressing with the original spelling before a legal dispute changed it, a withdrawn single pulled from shelves within days. Your test tonight is the label and the small print in the runout groove, not the song itself. Anything stamped demo, promo, or not for sale comes straight out of the pile, because a record company's own internal copies are often the rarest pressings that exist. Number 5, toys. The one that will genuinely sting if you had one and it's long gone. In the late 70s, at the height of a certain space opera toy craze, a manufacturer developed an action figure with a rocket-firing backpack, pulled before release over safety concerns. Only a handful of prototypes are known to survive.